The rain fell hard from the gray sky, cold and sharp like needles on bare skin. Celia's legs gave out under her as she reached the small gate. Her long silver hair soaked and sticking to her thin face, she wore a torn cloak, barely covering her strange alien skin that shimmered dimly in the wet night. She knelt on the muddy ground, her hands trembling. Her voice broken. "Please," she whispered, but the wind carried it away. The house beyond the gate was old, made of metal and wood. One of the last human shelters this far out from the central colonies. No lights showed in the windows. No warmth leaked through the walls, but she had no other choice. Her knees sank deeper into the mud, and still she waited. Her body shook from cold, hunger, and fear. She had walked for days through the wild zone, hiding from ships, creatures, and worse, her own people. Her hand moved to her belly, touching the faint glow under her skin. Inside her, life was forming. Not just any life, a royal embryo, genetically matched for a perfect heir, but not for the ones who chased her now. She had stolen it, implanted it in her own womb, and run. She raised her head as the door creaked open. A man stood there, tall, broad-shouldered, human. He had a short beard and sharp eyes, muscles built from labor, not show. His clothes were simple, a dark shirt and utility pants, but in his hand he held a laser rifle, pointed low but ready. "What are you?" he asked, his voice deep and calm but cold. Celia tried to speak, but her lips were numb. Her voice came out like a sob. "I'll bear your offspring, just don't throw me out." The man didn't move, not right away. The rain hit the ground around her like drumming fingers. He looked at her, truly looked, not just at her strange eyes or alien skin, but at the pain behind her words. She kept her head down, ashamed. "They threw me out like garbage," she said. "I have nothing, no food, no home, but the child. It needs a chance." The silence stretched, broken only by thunder in the distance. Then he stepped forward. Slowly, his boots sank into the mud near her knees. The rain poured harder now, but his voice cut through it like a blade. "Can you walk?" he asked. She shook her head weakly. "Not far," without another word. The man bent down and lifted her into his arms. Her body was too light, too cold. She felt the warmth of his chest as he carried her through the open gate and into the house. Inside, the room was small and dark, but dry. A fireplace sat unlit. In the corner, old tools and maps lined the walls. He placed her gently on a cot and threw a thick blanket over her. "I'm Jack," he said, kneeling beside her and checking her pulse. "You're burning up." "I'm Celia," she whispered. "I'm sorry for coming like this. I had nowhere else." Jack stared at her glowing stomach, the faint pulsing beneath her skin. "What is that?" She closed her eyes. "It's a child, not fully formed yet. But it's alive, and they'll kill me to take it." Jack stood up and went to the fireplace. He lit it with a small spark, warmth beginning to fill the room. "Who's they?" "My people," she said, barely audible. "I was part of a high-caste breeding program, but I was chosen to be discarded. I ran away. I took something they wanted." Jack didn't ask more. He simply tossed more wood into the fire and handed her a steaming mug of liquid. "Drink." She sipped slowly, her hands shaking. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. "You don't even know me." He didn't look at her right away. "Once, I begged for help too. No one came for me." Celia looked at him with wide, glowing eyes. Her lips parted, but no words came. There was something in his voice, an old wound, maybe, or something deeper. "Will you throw me out after tonight?" she asked softly. Jack turned and faced her, eyes locked with hers. "Stay with me," he said. Voice steady. "For as long as you need, for the first time in many days." Celia felt a tear roll down her cheek that wasn't from pain or fear. It was relief, maybe even the start of hope. Outside, the rain didn't stop, but inside, the fire burned brighter, far above them. In the clouds, something else stirred. A distant ship blinked red as it scanned the planet's surface. They were not alone, but for this moment, Saleya was safe, and Jack. The quiet man who had once walked away from war and chaos was about to be dragged into something even greater. And neither of them knew that the child growing inside her would change the galaxy forever. The fire cracked gently in the quiet room, throwing soft light across the walls as shadows danced like silent ghosts. Saleya lay still under the thick blanket, her eyes half open, watching the man who had saved her. Jack moved like someone used. To silence, precise and careful, as if every step had weight from the past. He didn't ask more questions that night, and she didn't offer more truths. Both of them were used to holding things close. But sleep didn't come easily. Sile's body was exhausted, plea, but her mind was loud memories, fear, and the strange. Warmth of the human's presence. Hours passed, and some time before dawn. She woke to a soft beeping noise. She blinked, confused, then realized the sound came from inside her own body. Her heart froze. Her skin beneath the blanket glowed faint. Red too faint for human eyes, maybe. But she knew exactly what it meant. The tracker had activated. She sat up quickly, holding her side, eyes darting around the room. Her hands trembled as she pressed her fingers against her ribs, trying to stop the signal, but it was too late. Her captors had designed it well, was meant to activate if she reached a stable temperature. As a failsafe, the signal was out, and someone would come. Jack was already awake. Standing in the doorway, watching her with sharp eyes. "You're glowing," he said quietly. Saleya nodded. Breathing fast, "They found me." He didn't ask who again. Instead, he moved to the table, pulled a small metallic box from a drawer, and tossed it to her. She caught it with shaky hands. "Confused EMP blaster," he said. "Short range. Enough to fry the signal if it's internal." Saleya hesitated, then pressed the device to her ribs and fired. Pain shot through her side. Like lightning wrapped in heat, she screamed, curling up, her body shaking. Jack didn't flinch. He stood still, watching her ride out the pain, waiting until she finally breathed again. Slowly and steady, the red glow faded, but the damage was done. The signal had pulsed for too long. They would be on their way. Jack turned to the window, pulling aside the curtain just a little. Outside, the sky was still dark, but a faint hum echoed through the wind machines in the distance. "Not natural. They'll come in pairs," Saleya whispered, voice weak. "First scouts, then retrieval." Jack looked at her. "You're important to them." She shook her head slowly. "Not me, the child." He walked over, sat on the edge of the cot, and studied her face. "What are they planning to do if they catch you?" "They'll remove the embryo," she said, her voice cracking, "and discard me like before." Jack's jaw tightened. He didn't speak for a while, only stared into the fire. Then he stood up again, went to the back wall, and pulled open a locked panel. Inside were weapons, old ones, human-made, scarred and dusty, but deadly. Saleya watched with wide eyes. "You were a soldier. I was tired of killing," he said, loading an old plasma cartridge, "but I'm even more tired of people like them." She tried to stand, but her legs wobbled. Jack caught her before she fell. His touch was steady, strong, and for a brief moment her heart calmed again. He helped her sit down and began wrapping her arm with a bandage. "We can't stay here," he said. "You need a place they can't reach, somewhere hidden." "Deep. There's a place," she whispered. "A refugee sector. Far across the ice fields. They don't know I know about it." Jack nodded once. "Then we go before sunrise." Saleya leaned against his shoulder for support, her body weak, but her spirit slowly rising. In just one night, this human stranger had done more than anyone else in her life he had not used. Her not judged her, not walked away, outside, in the dark sky. A light blinked once, then again the hunters were coming, but they were not ready for Jack. And they had no idea the child they chased was now guarded by a man who had once survived entire wars. The countdown had begun, but something had already changed. Celaya was no longer running alone. And Jack was no longer hiding from the world. The storm would come, but so would fire. A faint red light flickered in the sky above them just before sunrise. It wasn't natural, and Jack knew it the moment he saw it. He had seen lights like that during War Scout drones. Silent and fast, scanning for movement, for signals, for life. Inside the cabin, Celaya was already awake. She hadn't slept again since the pain of disabling the tracker. Her skin looked pale under the orange flicker of the fire, but her eyes were focused, steady, stronger than before. She pulled her hood tight around her face and helped Jack pack. He moved quickly, collecting supplies, weapons, and a worn datapad loaded with old smuggler maps. He handed her a ration bar, and she ate without complaint, biting through the dry block like it was a feast. "They'll scan this place first," she said, "then they'll burn it." "Let them," Jack replied, slinging a rifle over his back. "We won't be here." He pushed open a floor panel near the fireplace, revealing a narrow tunnel beneath the house, lined with dirt and metal supports. The smell of oil and earth came up with the cold air. It led to a cave system one Jack hadn't used in years. They climbed down together, Jack leading with a light strapped to his wrist. Celaya followed closely, one hand pressed to her stomach. Her body ached, but she didn't complain. The child inside her was stirring, faint but alive. The tunnel was long, stretching deep into the hills behind Jack's land. They walked in silence for over an hour. The only sounds were boots on rock and quiet breathing. Then, without warning, Jack raised his hand. Celaya froze behind him. He crouched low, eyes narrowing above them. A distant mechanical buzz filled the air. The scout drone had arrived. Jack reached for a hidden control panel embedded in the tunnel wall. He tapped in a code, and the entrance behind them sealed shut with a low thud. The drone wouldn't find it unless someone already knew what to look for. They moved on, deeper into the earth. Hours passed before they reached the edge of the old war tunnel's abandoned human trenches turned into escape routes. The space opened into a wide chamber where light from the surface peeked through cracks in the ceiling. Illuminating rusted machinery and forgotten crates, they rested there briefly. Jack checked a small device. The screen showed a pulsing red. DOT slowly moving across a map. "They're tracing residual heat," he muttered. "They've got the direction, just not the path." Celia nodded. "We can go through the frost cliffs. They'll avoid it. Too dangerous, then that's where we're going," Jack said. As they began moving again, Celaya stumbled, gripping the wall. Her breath hitched sharply. Jack turned immediately, helping her sit down. "What is it?" She held her belly, eyes wide. "The child. It's moving faster than it should." They modified it growth acceleration. Jack stared at her, realization setting in. "You mean it could be born early?" She nodded slowly, fear flickering in her gaze. "Too early, and it might not survive. But if we don't get to safety soon, none of us will." Jack stood, his hands tightening into fists. "Then we move faster." They left the chamber and climbed up into the cliffs. Snow beginning to fall. The wind howled across the rocks, and the cold bit into their bones. Still they moved higher and higher, until the sun disappeared behind a thick wall of clouds from a distance. A sleek black ship hovered near the edge of the forest Jack once called home. Bright red beams scanned the area, burning heat lines into the ground. A voice from the ship crackled over the comms in a cruel language Celaya knew too well. They were closing in, and they wouldn't stop until they had the child. But they didn't know Jack, and they didn't know the paths Alea had memorized from the old war records. They thought she was weak. They thought he was alone. They were wrong. Snow whipped across the stone ledges, sharp and fast like broken glass. Jack led the way, his boots crunching against the frozen surface as he held out a small scanner. Searching for the old smugglers passed through the cliffs, Saleya followed. Close behind, her breath coming in clouds, one arm holding her belly tight as the child inside her shifted again. Her steps faltered, but she kept going. Her skin was turning pale blue from the cold. And Jack noticed, without a word, he stopped, removed his heavy outer coat and wrapped it around her. She wanted to refuse, but didn't. There wasn't time for pride. "I'm fine," she whispered, though her legs wobbled. "You're not," Jack said. "But we'll be." Just then, the scanner beeped low and slow. Jack stopped, brushing snow from a rock wall, and revealed a faded symbol burned into the stone, a double triangle code for safe entry, human-built. He slammed his hand against the stone, and a small door creaked open, just wide enough to crawl through. Inside, it was dark and tight, but warmer. Old metal walls surrounded them as they climbed into the hidden chamber. Once a supply station during the war, now it was dust and silence. Jack sealed the door behind them and tapped a panel. Lights flickered on, yellow and weak, but enough to see. Saleya sank onto a metal bench. Shivering, "This place is still here," she whispered, "after all these years." Jack moved through the space like he'd been here before, pulling blankets from sealed crates, cracking open water containers, and inspecting the weapon rack still locked in the corner. It was a last resort bunker, he said. No one ever came back for it. Suddenly, a sound echoed outside a low hum. Growing louder, Jack and Saleya froze. He moved quickly to a side monitor and activated the external cam. The screen blinked to life, showing two figures in black armor standing in the snow. They weren't human. Their faces were hidden under masks, and their bodies were tall and unnaturally thin. Saleya's breath caught in her throat. "Harvesters," she whispered. "They always send them first. They don't speak. They don't ask questions. They just take." Jack grabbed a rifle from the wall, loaded it with shaking hands. "They won't take anything from here." The harvesters stepped closer to the hidden wall, one of them scanning the cliffside slowly, the scanner in its hand. Beeped once faintly, not strong enough to pinpoint the door. But the alien didn't move on. It simply stood there, as if listening, inside the bunker. The child stirred again. Saleya gritted her teeth, trying not to cry out. Jack handed her a cloth to bite. "Stay still," he whispered. "They might move on." The two black-armored figures circled the rocks for minutes that felt like hours. Then, finally, they turned away and disappeared into the storm. Jack didn't relax. "They'll be back, and next time they'll bring more." Saleya wiped her eyes, her voice weak. "We have to keep going, but I don't know how much longer I can run." Jack turned toward her, his eyes hard but gentle. "Then I'll carry you." Saleya looked at him, stunned. "Why would you do this? Why risk your life for me?" He stared at the door they'd come through, snow still blowing in from the crack. "Because I don't throw people away. Not like they did." She lowered her head, a tear slipping down her cheek. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," he said. "You're not just running for yourself. You're protecting someone who can't protect themselves yet." The silence between them was heavy, but not cold. Jack knelt beside her, checked her pulse, then pressed his forehead to hers, briefly human gesture of comfort. She didn't understand but welcomed. Outside, far below in the valley, more ships had arrived, and this time, they weren't just looking, they were hunting. But Jack had made a decision. He would not run, not without her, not without the child. The snowstorm had grown fierce, swallowing sound and sight as Jack carried Saleya through the narrow frozen trail above the valley. His arms ached from her weight, but he didn't complain. Her body was too cold, too still. Her eyes blinked slowly, lips pale, but she held on. One hand over her stomach, where the unborn child now moved restlessly. Behind them, distant echoes rolled through the mountain ships, moving low. Engines muffled by the storm, Jack didn't need to look back to know the hunters had arrived. In full, their silence meant only one thing: they already had her location. And they were closing in without warning. The cliffs twisted into sharp curves and sudden drops. One wrong step and both of them would fall. Jack pressed on, boots grinding into ice. The wind howled like a warning in his ears, but he kept moving. Saleya shivered harder, whispering something he couldn't hear. "We're close," he said, quietly, more to himself than to her. "You're not going to die out here." They reached a narrow cave entrance hidden under an icy overhang, barely visible if one didn't know it was there. Jack ducked inside, the warmth from deeper underground rushing against their frozen skin like a sigh from the earth itself. He laid her down gently on a flat stone near the back, opened his pack, and pulled out a heating coil. The cave's walls glowed faint blue, minerals humming softly in the background. Remnants of old war tech buried in the rocks. As heat filled the chamber, Saleya groaned. Her fingers twitching, her eyes fluttered open. "The baby," she gasped. "It's reacting to the stress. It's not supposed to move this much." Jack moved quickly, unsealing one of his remaining emergency kits. Inside was a compact medical scanner. He placed it over her stomach, and the screen blinked to life readings flashing in alien symbols. Saleya's tech, translated into human. Code Jack stared at the results, heart sinking. "It's maturing fast," he said. Too fast, it was altered. She whispered, "To be born in case of political collapse. A last resort heir, but it's unstable if it comes too early." He didn't let her finish. "Then we'll stop running," he said. "We'll find help." "There is no help," she whispered. "Not for us." Jack looked at her and shook his head. "That's not true." Before she could respond, a faint chirp came from his shoulder transmitter, an old channel, scrambled but alive. A voice crackled through, low and fast. "Human signature detected. Not confirmed. Request contact refugee colony Sierra 5 open to evac." Jack's heart skipped. He activated the beacon and tapped in his code. "Jack Collins, X-Ground Unit. Traveling with non-combatant female. High-risk pregnancy. Need cover and evac." There was silence. Then the voice returned. "Copy that. Coordinates received." "But you're not alone, are you?" He looked at Saleya, who stared back at him with fear and hope fighting in her eyes. "No," he said. "We're being followed." "Then you'll need to survive the next 4 hours," the voice said. "We'll be there if you make it." The signal ended. Jack turned back to her. "We're not out yet, but someone's coming." Saleya reached for his hand, gripping it tightly. "I don't want to die before I see my child's eyes." "You won't," Jack said. "I'll make sure of it." Far down the trail, black figures stepped onto the ice, rifles raised, armor shining with red lines. Their steps were silent, precise. Without mercy, the hunt had reached its final phase. But Jack stood, loaded his rifle, and looked into the storm with calm fury. They would not take her, not while he still breathed. The cold cave was silent except for the faint hum of the heating coil. Jack sat beside Saleya, gently holding her hand as she fought to steady her breathing. Her body was tired, but her eyes burned with a fierce light. The child inside her moved. Again, stronger this time, like a warning or a promise. Jack placed the medical scanner on her belly once more, watching the strange patterns flicker across the screen. "This child," he said softly, "it's not just a baby. Is it, Saleya? Shook her head, tears forming at the edge of her eyes. No, it's more than that. It was engineered to bring peace between our peoples, a symbol. A hope, but many want to destroy that hope before it's born. Jack looked at her with new respect. Then we have to protect it, no matter the cost, suddenly. The cave entrance shook as heavy footsteps pounded outside the hunters had found them, and they came with machines and weapons far beyond anything Jack had seen before. He grabbed his rifle, loading it with a calm born from years of battle. Get ready, he said. Saleya gripped his arm. If I fall, promise me you'll keep the child safe. Jack nodded without hesitation. I promise. The heavy door at the cave's mouth burst open with a crash, and shadows spilled inside. Tall figures in black armor advanced, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. Jack fired first, plasma bolts lighting the dark, but more kept coming. The hunters moved with terrifying speed, pushing closer to Saleya, who lay weak but determined. One hunter lunged toward her, but Jack slammed his rifle butt into the figure's helmet. Stunning it momentarily, he grabbed Saleya and dragged her deeper into the cave. Away from the fight, breathing hard, Jack whispered, "Stay with me. You're stronger than they think." Saleya closed her eyes, pain flashing across her face, but she held on. The child inside pushed hard, like it was fighting for its own life. Outside, the battle raged, Jack's shots echoing off the stone. But then, a loud explosion rocked the cave entrance, throwing dust and debris into the air. Through the haze, a fleet of ships appeared overhead, their lights cutting through the storm. Friendly ships, human and alien allies sent by the refugee colony. The hunters hesitated, then retreated. Disappearing into the night, Jack helped Saleya to her feet, supporting her as they moved toward the light. "We made it," she whispered, hope returning to her voice. Jack smiled. "This is just the beginning, but we're not alone anymore." As the ships landed, ready to bring them to safety, Jack looked at Saleya and said, "Stay with me forever," and for the first time, she believed they might have a future beyond the storm. Snowflakes drifted softly through the broken cave entrance as the rescue ships lowered from the clouds. Their engines roared above the cliffs, sending ice and wind rushing into the air. Jack held Saleya tightly against him, shielding her from the bitter cold. Her body was trembling partly from exhaustion, partly from something deeper. Her skin glowed faintly, and the child inside her kicked with strength that startled even her. They had made it to extraction, but the battle was not over. Not yet. A group of soldiers emerged from the lead ship, human and alien. Working together, their armor was marked with the refugee colony's crest. A rare sight in these times, a medic ran forward, scanning Saleya and quickly motioning for a stretcher. "She needs emergency care," the medic said. "The child's life is accelerating beyond safe limits." Saleya gripped Jack's sleeve, panic in her eyes. "No. Don't let them take me without you." Jack leaned down, pressing his forehead to hers just like before. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "You're safe now, both of you." The medics lifted her carefully and rushed her toward the waiting ship. Jack followed close behind, his rifle still in hand, eyes scanning the skies. He had learned long ago that peace could be broken in a moment as the hatch closed behind them. Saleya lay back, eyes wide with fear and pain. The ship lifted into the air, leaving the snow-covered battlefield far below. Suddenly, the monitors beeped faster. The medic's face changed from calm to alarmed. "It's happening now," he said, the birth width starting. Jack stood frozen, unsure what to do. He was a soldier, not a father, not a doctor. But when Saleya reached for him and whispered, "Don't leave me," his body moved before his thoughts did. He took her hand and stayed beside her as the room filled with light. The child was coming into the world, unexpected, but alive. Saleya cried out, her whole body tense. The medics worked fast, guiding the delivery as Jack wiped sweat from her brow and whispered, "You can do this," again and again. And then, suddenly, silence. A soft cry echoed through the room. High and clear, Jack turned, and for the first time, saw the child, a newborn. Glowing faintly with light under its skin, human and alien, perfectly blended, beautiful, alive. Saleya was crying now, but with joy. "We did it," she said. Her voice shaking. "She's alive." The medic handed the child to her gently. "She's strong," he said. "Stronger than most full-term infants. Her vitals are stable. Her genes? They're extraordinary." Jack looked at the tiny face, the soft, glowing eyes blinking up at the world. For a moment, the war, the running, the danger, it all felt distant. Saleya turned to Jack and whispered, "Do you still want us to stay with you?" He didn't answer with words. He just leaned in and kissed her forehead, then touched the baby's tiny hand. The answer was clear. Outside, the storm had cleared, revealing a bright morning sky. Below them, the cliffs were quiet, and the hunters had vanished back into shadow. The child born of two worlds had survived. And in that quiet moment aboard a rescue ship drifting through the clouds, a new family had begun, together forever. No longer running, no longer alone.